sí, 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 hola, sí, sí. Yo estoy a cero, sí, pero te puedo subir de la matriz otra vez. Sí, sí, sí.
Vale, ¿sí? Sí, sí, sí. Sí, 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 vale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Tengo que probar. Vale. Está en el volumen.
touching you more and more every time. When you leave, I'm begging you not to go. Call your name 2-3 times in a row. Such a funny thing for me to try to explain. How I'm feeling and my pride is the one to blame. Cause I know I don't understand just how your love can do it, no one else can. Na 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 na. 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 Na 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 na. Oh 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 no no. Oh 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 no no. Oh 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 no no. Oh 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 no no. When I talk to my friends so quietly, who we think he is? Look at what you did to me. Tennis shoes don't even need to buy a new dress. If you ain't there, ain't nobody else to impress. The way that you know that I thought I knew is the beat that my heart gets me out with you. But I still don't understand just how your love can do it, no one else can. Got me looking so crazy right now. Your love's got me looking so crazy right now. Got me looking so crazy right now. Your touch has got me looking so crazy right now. Got me hoping you pace me right now. Your kiss got me hoping you save me right now. Looking so crazy, your love's got me looking so crazy, your love. Looking so crazy, your love's got me looking so crazy, your love. Got me looking so crazy, my baby. I'm not myself lately. I'm foolish. I don't do this.
comes the shame. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, drink. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, drink. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, drink. Show 'em back till I lose count. I'm gonna swing from the chandelier, from the chandelier. I'm gonna live like tomorrow doesn't exist, like it doesn't exist. I'm gonna fly like a bird through the night, feel my tears as they dry. I'm gonna swing from the chandelier. I'm just holding on for dear life. Won't look down, won't open my eyes. Keep my glass full until morning light.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once? I am one of those melodramatic fools, neurotic to the bone, no doubt about it. Sometimes I give myself the creeps. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm cracking up. Am I just paranoid? Am I just stoned?
Buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Teresa García, vicepresidente Omnicom España y CEO de Quechun España. En nombre de las agencias de Omnicom aquí representadas, Contrapunto BBDO, DDDB, Interbrand, Quechun OMD, PhD, Porter Novele, Proximity, Tiempo de DDD y Tro Marketing, quería daros las gracias por asistir una vez más al encuentro de tendencias de Omnicom, que veo por la gente que estáis aquí, muchas caras conocidas que nos acompañáis todos los años. Por lo tanto, muchas gracias. Este año queríamos enfocar el encuentro en un tema que quizás nos inspirara para mejorar nuestra comunicación en una sociedad tan cambiante, donde cada vez más se impone la necesidad de la transparencia, del diálogo, de la negociación y también para conectar de verdad con las audiencias que nos interesan para los clientes para los que trabajamos o para las empresas que estáis aquí, para los consumidores a los que os queréis dirigir. Por eso consideramos que la serie danesa de televisión Borgen reunía todos estos valores, además de exponernos a un panorama sociopolítico muy diferente al que hemos vivido y estamos viviendo, desgraciadamente, en España, y del que creemos que todos podemos sacar muy buenos aprendizajes y, sobre todo, estaréis de acuerdo conmigo, la clase política. El éxito de la serie Borgen ha sido y sigue siendo espectacular. Siendo Dinamarca un país pequeño dentro del continente europeo, ha sido capaz de crear un storytelling que ha triunfado en más de 80 países en 5 continentes y ha recibido diversos premios. Ha recibido el BAFTA 2012, el Prix Italia 2010, el American Peabody Award 2013 y también ha sido nominada para los Emmy en su tiempo. Hoy, para contarnos cómo se creó este storytelling tan apasionante, contamos con la presencia de su guionista, el danés Adam Price, escritor, que además de ser guionista tiene una faceta que yo particularmente me apasiona, que es un chef muy conocido en su país, que tiene varios restaurantes y también fuera de él. Yo creo que es muy interesante que nos cuente cómo ha cocinado las historias de Borgen y cómo cocina sus platos, si hay algo en común en eso de cocinar, tanto historias como platos. Yo creo que ha logrado crear una serie que con historias concatenadas ha hecho que muchos de los que estamos hoy aquí y en el planeta seamos superfans de la serie. Os dejo con Adam Price y con Susana Roza, periodista que ha trabajado en la CNN, en CBS y que muchos recordaréis, ahora veréis cuando suba al escenario, porque su cara os va a recordar el telediario matinal de Televisión Española. Adelante.
Hola.
Thank you very much.
Hola a todos. Nos vamos a sentar. Please sit down.
Thank you.
Los que madrugasteis alguna vez hace unos cuantos años, a lo mejor me recordáis del telediario matinal, pero lo que más me gusta es conocer de cerca a gente como Adam, con el que vamos a charlar esta mañana para que nos enseñe un poquito más de lo que dice Teresa, cómo se cocinó una serie como Borgen, de la que también reconozco que soy fan, como supongo que muchos de vosotros. La conversación se va a desarrollar en inglés, entonces si queréis con los cascos podréis escuchar en español la traducción en el canal 1. Ayer tuvimos la oportunidad de conocernos un poco mejor y de ir a compartir un poco de vino y de jamón y ahí nos dimos cuenta de que necesitábamos escuchar directamente de Adam la idea de cómo nació Borgen, de por qué se sentó un día a escribir y qué es lo que realmente quería contar con la serie. Entonces le invitamos a empezar el acto de hoy con una presentación que él nos va a hacer sobre exactamente cuál fue la esencia que le impulsó a ser creador y desde dónde nació esa inspiración. Entonces, si me permitís, yo a partir de ahora hablaré con él en inglés para que nos entendamos y a través de los cascos nos podéis seguir o los que entiendan español, inglés y español, por supuesto, bienvenidos. Después, más tarde, ya haremos unas preguntas y siempre al final, si queréis empezar a pensar algo, que sepáis que vuestras preguntas también serán bienvenidas y podremos acabar el acto con todas aquellas cuestiones que a vosotros os resulten interesantes. So, Adam, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
And I was explaining to them that we had a great wine and ham yesterday
Yeah,
night.
yes. Love your ham.
So for us, it was very interesting to know from you, from inside, why Borgen was born and when and why, specifically why.
Yeah.
So I would like you to explain to us.
Definitely.
Thank
I'll
you.
do that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much also to Omnicom for inviting me to this event. I will try to talk a little about the communication process around Borgen. Borgen is very much a communication product, you could say. It's a story, and we wanted to communicate it to as many people as possible. But to take you a little back in time, this whole thing actually started with a crisis. Yeah. Because 25 or 30 years ago, a famous Danish TV critic wrote the epic line, "Life is too short for Danish TV drama." So basically, Danish TV was in a crisis. We did terrible TV series. It was boring. It was poorly written. And something needed to be done about it. And actually, DR, the Danish National Broadcasting Company, decided to invest in the writing process, invest in writers, and actually study the Americans who were so damned good at it to find out what is the secret. And I will say that the secret is very much time and money and investing in writers. So why a story about politics? Well, I was invited to do a story, and I thought, what to talk about? What is going to be the essence of my story? And then I was provoked, because my generation in Denmark has always been told that we were non-political. My parents, they were the political ones. They did the rebellion in '68 and they changed society. They came with the liberation of women and the equality of the sexes, and they changed the whole thing. So what were we? We were consumers, basically. We bought things and got high salaries. And I thought, is it true? Is it really true? Because when I was young, I grew up with very famous images of people fighting for freedom, fighting for democracy. This is, of course, an epic image from the Tiananmen Square, where this guy in the white shirt, called the Tank Man, actually stopped 10 tanks just standing there in his white shirt. I don't think he was ever identified, but I'm sure he's still in prison. But anyway, and also the falling of the Berlin Wall, very famous image. And then I had an interesting experience in Denmark. It was in the year 2007, so 9 years ago. This is Mr. Anders Fogh Rasmussen. He was our former prime minister, and he has also been Secretary General of NATO, so you might know the man, serious man. And this very moment was epic for me, because this is the very moment where he announces the general election in Denmark in 2007. At that very moment, I was standing in a not very political place, in my fitness center, next to a very big, muscular guy. And here we have the Prime Minister who announces the election, and the election should actually be the big heyday of democracy, right? This should be where we celebrate our right to vote. And this big, muscular guy standing next to me said the beautiful words, "Fuck, count me out." And then he turned around and walked. And I just thought, that's interesting, because we have people that are willing to die to get the possibility to vote, to get the opportunity. They are willing to die for democracy, but when we have it, and in Denmark we've had it since 1849, so we are a very old democracy, then we don't care about it. So that was going to be the center of the story, democracy. Now, how to tackle a story about democracy? Well, I'll give you 2 quotes about democracy. One is a cynical one. The best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter. That's pretty nasty, actually, right? When you begin to talk to people that are actually, well, voting, then you think, these people are so stupid. Why should we give them the right to vote? I'll give you a more uplifting and funny quote. Democracy is the worst form of government except from all others that have been tried throughout history. So it's the least worst choice to have democracy. Both of them were actually spoken, or we could attribute them to this man, Winston Churchill. So a great statesman indeed. So basically, the choice of the political story, you can either be an idealist or you can be cynical. And if I take you through some of the famous political series or films, it's those 2 choices. Here we have Mr. Voltaire, a man from the Enlightenment, definitely a man who wanted the best for democracy and the free will of people. And here we have Machiavelli, who believed in fear very much. Well, he was a civil servant. He served the prince in the Renaissance, Tuscany, Florence, and a lot of these cynical quotes we have from him. So here is a very, very famous political story, All the President's Men, a story about that the politician is an evil person, it's an evil beast, and you need 2 conscientious and very good-looking journalists to actually bring them down, right? House of Cards, I mean. And obviously, Kevin Spacey is a Machiavellian. I mean, the most Machiavellian of all political people in fiction. Yes, Minister, you possibly also saw that one. That's actually also a very cynical show. But in Yes, Minister, they changed the angle a bit because the politician is the idealistic fool and the real Machiavellian is Sir Humphrey over there, who is actually telling him how things really work. The West Wing, a great example of a very heroic story. So what was supposed to be our take on it? Well, I thought when I was standing next to that guy in the fitness center, we definitely need to make a great celebration of democracy. We need to tell people that it's actually worthwhile to vote. So it had to be an idealistic story, not a complete romance about democracy, but definitely an idealistic story. So we have our three main characters here, and they actually represent, you could say, levels of democracy, parts of democracy. Obviously, you have the Prime Minister. She represents the political side. You have the spin doctor. Well, in Denmark, anyway, spin doctors are actually civil servants. They are men and women of the system. And you have the journalist. And those three form the center of the show. Well, I'll just show you a few examples of communication that was quite inspiring to us when we wrote the show. Just to give you an absurd example of how politicians speak. And my best advice to any politician would be not to speak like this. This is from the last election we had in Denmark. Actually, we have a journalist and we have a politician. The politician is supposed to defend a new proposition in Parliament that people will actually have to commute to take a train or a bus for 2 hours to go to work. And the journalist says, the consequence of your new proposal will for some people mean that they will have to commute for 2 hours to go to work. Is that fair? And what does the politician say? It's important to remember that we want to bring down unemployment with this new proposal. That is not an answer to that question. Do we want communication to exist on this level? It will be, just to say blah blah about your product, basically, and not answer any real questions. We want brave politicians. We would actually like a politician to say, yes, because this country is in a crisis. We have many people without work. So if they have to take a train for 2 hours, so be it. They will tell their grandchildren that they did that for them, and onwards, please. This is Danish politicians from the last election. I'm sure they look a bit like yours. So actually, if you have communication on that level, it is actually scripted repetitiousness. This is all, all these shows that are actually quite famous examples of reality shows. And when politicians speak like that example I just showed you, it's almost like taking part in a reality show. You feel that it's scripted. You can see the spin doctor standing behind them saying, whatever she asks you, just say that we want to bring down unemployment. Don't ever say something unpleasant, ever. Just say the words, just speak the lines. But we don't want that. We want that the language of power, that the political communication is an inspiration. We want, yes, we can. We want the great speeches of Churchill. We want John F. Kennedy to tell us, don't ask what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And yes, we can with Mr. Obama. I must say that the current choice of presidents in the United States, my God, yeah. But we'll return to that. Interesting. Well, the language of power in fiction, for us in Borgen, here's our Prime Minister. That's her essential speech in the show. And here we have a beautiful woman. We actually asked her to put on a little weight. She was too vain to do that, so we had to put a pillow on her and give her a too big a dress, because we wanted to show here is a beautiful woman. She is shaped like a woman. She's perhaps 5 kilos overweight, and she speaks her mind. And that's how to win an election. That's how to sell your product, through some sort of personal honesty. And that honesty wins her the election. When we do a series in Denmark, we are always asked, what is the premise? I think that question is essential. Also, when you sell a product, what is the premise of your product? And it's quite hard, actually, to get to the right sentence. The sentence we arrived at for Borgen was, can you remain in power and still remain true to yourself? And I would put a D in and, but that's the premise of the show. And every time we got lost in the process, we would return to that sentence and say, everything that we put out in this show needs to reflect that problem. Every single character needs to be challenged in that way. And obviously, with a working mother who's prime minister, it was an essential question for her. And this is how she looks in episode 10. Completely changed. She actually lost, I think, 5 or 10 kilos there when she fires her old friend, because that is also a consequence of leadership. Well, in 2010, the head of drama for Danish TV said Borgen will never travel. Why? Well, just as we heard, you just said that it's a Danish show about coalition politics. Who would ever want to see it? Even the Danes, why would they want to see it? And then things began to happen. All of a sudden, the Brits bought the show and actually aired it in Danish. Yeah, so this is a screenshot with English subtitles. And then it came to France, Une femme au pouvoir. Yes, of course. But still they called it Borgen. It's quite weird that the show is called Borgen everywhere around the world. I mean, in English speaking, Borgen sounds like something, a monster from Game of Thrones or something. You will meet Borgen. Yeah. But anyway, it went absolutely amazing, and we are still amazed. Here we are receiving the BAFTA, and 2016 we have sold it to about 75 or possibly 80 countries. This is a bus in Los Angeles. I love that slogan, stop what you're doing and go watch Borgen. It's completely silly, but nevertheless. Well, we did receive a lot of criticism on the home front. 2 main issues. They told us that it was unrealistic, especially people that didn't like the political issues of the show, thought it was very unrealistic, and that it was propaganda. And actually, for a big public service broadcaster like DR, it's important to know that whether it is propaganda or not, because obviously if you do a political show, you need to have characters that have opinions. So we actually did a survey. The Danish Copenhagen Business School actually did a survey on Borgen, and they arrived at this result. Borgen has not influenced its audience politically, but it has stirred the general interest in politics. And that was the best praise we could ever get. And we are intensely thrilled. And still, you know, the world wants to be deceived. That was a beautiful line from Caius Petronius about 2,000 years ago. Everybody wants to be deceived. We still want to be deceived, while politicians and all of us in the communication and storytelling business, we are deceivers, but we can be deceivers with a strong message, because we want to lure the audience close to our storytelling. The world wants to be deceived. The only pleasure I can say from writing fiction is that in fiction, at least you know for a fact that you are being deceived. And I hope that the people that vote for Trump believe that, they are being deceived as well. So, that is just what I wanted to tell you about the process around Borgen. Let's have a chat. Thank you very much.
I love the idea you consider that the main character was allowed to be 5 kilos overweight. I think it's great, the idea he thinks about women, but we'll talk about that later. Because my first question would be, how did you do it? I mean, day by day, do you have any method to start writing a series like this?
Very much. We have a system, and the system is absolutely essential when we do a series like this. So the system is actually a version of the American showrunner system. Actually, the way they tell stories, the method, how you develop stories like that. We took that to Denmark, just when I said in my presentation that actually the whole thing began with a crisis, right? Because Danish TV was in a crisis. We didn't know how to do it 25 years ago. So we went to the States, we studied the Americans, and we found out, oh, they have a showrunner, they have a creator, they have a writer's room, a room full of writers, and they spent time, a lot of time, in that initial process. Time and money. But as most of you probably know, when is storytelling for TV or film or commercials, when is it the most expensive? When you're in production. Production is expensive. Development is not that expensive. So actually, you should spend your money on development. And that's what we do, basically. So when we when we do it, I can tell you the system is quite easy conceived. I mean, we spend a month doing 2 episodes, and that is only the story on whiteboards. We don't write scripts. We spend a month discussing, like we sit here. We are 3, 4, perhaps 5 writers, no more than that. Then after a month, we will have 2 storylines for 2 episodes. They will go back, the writers, they will write a treatment. A treatment is the story without dialogue. They will come back, we will correct that. Then they will write the first draft for 3 weeks. They will come back, get notes, write the second draft for 2 weeks. They will come back, and then I take over as creator, and I write the 4th, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and sometimes the 7th draft. Then I'm really tired and sad, because it's still not good enough. But as I think a great songwriter once said that you never finish a song, you leave it. And yeah, and it's the same thing with scripts. At one time, it just has to be produced.
Sure.
But if you look at this system, we spend a lot of time on it. And that was the lesson of DR back in the 80s when they studied the Americans. You need to spend time and money developing the stories and invest in writers. And it has proven very successful. DR has actually won several Prix Italias, Emmys, BAFTAs, and sold their series to far over 100 countries.
And what about the inspiration? I mean, which is your main idea to identify yourself as a writer to your characters? How do you do that process?
Well, I think you can write on a lot of different emotions. You can write on anger if you want to change something. You can write on curiosity, something you don't understand. Borgen was very much a curiosity project. They tell us that we're not political. They tell us that, and I wanted to pay tribute to democracy. How do you do that? And then we arrived at that premise that I just showed. And it was a long process. I mean, we spent, a year on each season just to write it. A year on each season. And that is the system. If you break it down, what I just said, it takes a lot of time. It actually takes about 3 months to write 1 episode, yeah? And I think that's where the quality really lies.
Were you surprised of your success? I mean, after selling the series to 80 countries, were you expecting that?
Definitely not. I mean, we were grateful. We didn't even know if the Danes would like the show. So, I mean, we were told by our boss, if we sell it to the Swedes and the Norwegians, our neighbors,
Enough.
they will buy it out of brotherly love and kind of saying, yeah, it's fine. We will take your shitty show about coalition politics. And then it just was a snowball. And of course, I have to pay tribute to my great friend and colleague Søren Svejstrup, who did The Killing, because we're standing on the shoulders of The Killing. The Killing was a huge international success. And then they probably said in the UK, well, let's take a look at what the Danes do now. And then they saw Borgen and said, well, it's nice. Let's try to see. And actually, it became a huge success over there.
And why do you think it was such a big success? What do you think you have so many fans? Which are the keys?
Well, I think that we were successful at creating characters that were actually compelling. When you say, well, it's nice to have a woman who's actually a professional, super cool, tough chick. She weighs 5 kilos too much.
I love it.
I think a lot of women say,
oh,
God,
thank God.
that's nice, yeah. And then she has a lot of very identifiable problems. I mean, because being a working mother or a working father, like I am myself, you are constantly balancing, I want to be together with my son, but I also want to do this project. If I spend more time with the project, I will let down my son. What is the right choice? Because the greatest lie that even anything Donald Trump says is not as bad is the lie about quality time with your kids, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, that if you just spend 5 minutes with them, but it's good 5 minutes, then it's perfect. Nobody will ever notice. They will notice.
Okay.
They will say, you were not there. You were entertaining for 5 minutes, but you were not there.
I see. So going back to that
Yeah.
identification, can
Yeah.
we translate that to any business? If you identify your product to your client?
Very much. I think, again, you have to go into what is the message I'm selling? What is the quintessential qualities of my product? What is the storytelling of my product? How do I make this as compelling as possible? I could give you an example of a great commercial. I don't know if you actually had that commercial here, but Volvo did a brilliant thing. You know, Volvo was going down, and I think it's produced in several countries, also China, right? It's not even put together in Sweden anymore. Mm-hmm. But then they did an amazing commercial where they used the football player Zlatan Ibrahimovic, most of you know, Manchester, great player. They used him actually to sell the product, and they used the Swedish national anthem. And him, with his very thick accent from Malmö, south of Sweden, was actually saying the lyrics. And they showed the car, and they showed him as a tough guy, but also playing with his kids, kissing his wife, being a good father, and still working, playing. And then you saw this car driving through Sweden, and you heard the words of the Swedish national anthem. It's almost heretic, or it's almost too much, you know? But they kept it, and it's a great commercial, because when you see it, you say, I want to be Swedish. and that is amazing, yeah? And then the end slogan was not made in Sweden, because that would be a lie, but made by Sweden. So everybody that was Swedish or wanted to be Swedish actually, well, I did that as well, you know? And it gave you that intense feeling of pride. I'm sure they were very, very proud about that. So that was really good storytelling.
Yeah, but what about those emotions? Don't you think that sometimes we are overloaded with emotions sometimes?
Yes.
Everything makes you cry.
But that's when you do cliché. And I think cliché is the great sin and the great disease of storytelling. Because when you write a story like Borgen, we try to be very true to our characters, and we try to know the world of our characters. So we really go into them. And when we spend so much time on an episode, we spend that time not to write cliché. So sometimes I think when you see a commercial or some kind of communication that seems false in a way, that seems heavy-loaded with emotions, That you cannot attribute that kind of emotion to something that basically wash your clothes or, you know, I mean, it's a toothpaste. I mean, stop it. But when you see that, it is conceived too quickly, I think. It is done too quickly, and when you write too quickly, when you have to develop ideas too quickly, you tend to write cliché. Cliché is every emotion you have seen before on film. So you say, oh yeah, let's write that great scene, you know, from When Harry Met Sally. We'll put that in that commercial. But that is not original. That is writing something that some other people wrote before you, and you're just basically clinging on to that.
I see.
So I think it's very important to stay true to message and not to tell a story here if your product is here.
Yeah.
It's very important. And also sometimes to say, is it really worthwhile, or does it make sense to attribute these emotions to this product? Or are we basically just wanting to be screenwriters, but we're telling a movie that is 20 seconds long and is about toothpaste? Yeah.
It's a matter of common sense. Let me ask you something else about the Volvo example. And
Yeah.
it's about how to be truthful and honest and transparent.
Yeah.
I think most of the importance of Borgen is that I can tell as a viewer that you are trying to be honest and the main characters are true to themselves. So is that something that you have to keep, and which I think is not easy?
No, it's not. The great thing about fiction is that we can show the dilemma. I mean, if we look at a scene from Borgen, and we look at a scene from real life, for instance, Spanish politics, where...
Don't go there.
No, yeah. Well, that's even better than fiction,
We'll
isn't it? No, but then you see a politician coming out of some kind of negotiating room and just saying, yes, we didn't compromise, we did this. And then he goes out. And then later you discover that he was probably lying, or he was not telling the whole truth. Well, then you hate that politician. But in Borgen, we get to show him, or we get to show her, leaving the cameras and being almost shameful, in tears, going back to her kids, saying, I had to lie today. I hate myself. I'm a bad politician. I hope I can be a good mother, at least. We can show the dilemma. We can show the 3 dimensions, or 4 or 5 dimensions of the character. You don't get that on the news. You only get the bastard that lies. So that's the good thing about fiction, that we can actually turn a bastard into a good guy by showing that he's regretful. That's what Shakespeare did in Macbeth, right? You have a guy who kills for 3 hours, but you hear his conscience. I'm a terrible person. Why do I kill all these people? Oh, God. So you actually get to like Macbeth, even though he's a monster. But that's because Shakespeare gave us his conscience. The news don't give us the politician's conscience. It's only giving us the lies.
Okay. Let me go back to another very important point you mentioned, which is negotiation.
Yeah.
How do you think you can build a relationship through the series about negotiation? Because it's very important for us as a Spanish.
Yeah.
And what do we have now in front of us? What do you think is the main thing for you to become a good negotiator?
Well, I could say that negotiating is very much about buying and selling. It's also very much about compromise. And compromise is a national sport in Denmark. Yeah, because our democracy is 160 years old. We've done a lot of communication and a lot of negotiating, right? So, I mean, and almost all our governments have been coalition governments. So we are very used to that. And also in business life, we're very used to, we're so small, we have to work together. So we constantly have to form new alliances. And we are quite good at that, and we are quite fast at that. There was a Danish politician, a foreign secretary a generation ago, who said, the chief thing you have to learn in negotiation and forming and being successful as a negotiator is to be willing to give other people the honor for the good results. Yeah?
That's to be generous too, yeah, which
Yeah.
is very difficult.
Actually,
sometimes.
to say, and that is a very good trick in negotiating, to say, I will try to play it as if it was your idea.
But what about leadership in that case?
Yes, well, good leadership is also, I mean, good leadership is very much also to be able to delegate.
Yeah.
And that is the great problem of Birgitte Nyborg and at the end of the first season, because as a woman, she is so much into details. Also, as a professional woman in a world of men, she not only has to be as good as the men, she has to be 10 times better. So she begins to look into everything. Every minister, all her ministers in her cabinet, she's constantly watching them, constantly saying, I would correct that line if I was you. I would do this differently. And if you do that as a boss, you die very young. And you get colleagues that hate you. And I think one thing that has been very important in Denmark and in Danish business life is that we actually like not that much hierarchy in our businesses. We like a kind of a flat structure. And that is very, very important, that the bosses are actually accessible, that a common worker can actually communicate with the boss. I think that has proven very successful for Danish business life, and not to take ourselves too seriously. We take our business seriously, but we don't go that much into titles. Not saying, well, as CEO of my blah, 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 all the time. And really standing so much on ceremony and hierarchy, but actually more trying to say, in which direction are we going to go? If you have the best idea, then let your idea win. That is also great leadership, if you can actually say, damn you, it was a good idea, let's go there. Instead of saying, I'm the boss, my idea has to be better. But it's not always that.
I think we have so many things to learn from you guys.
Well, I just...
The thing is that if you look at our audience, I think at least half of it is female. I think we are a lot of women
Wonderful.
here, which is
Yeah.
great.
Professional women.
Yeah, and so I would like to talk to you about female leadership.
Yeah.
Why did you decide that your main character had to be a woman?
Because I thought it was a very deliberate choice. Because when you write a show like Borgen, when you are a storyteller, I mainly write for one reason, to touch my audience. I want to touch them as much as I possibly can. I want to evoke emotions in my audience. And I thought this story, a person, let's just say a person, it could be a man, it could be a woman, that sacrifices so much in order to be the best at a certain position, a job, the most difficult job in the world. What would be the most painful thing to watch? A man? Men, we have 10,000 years history of letting down our wives, letting down our kids, leaving our homes in order to wage wars, to build businesses, and then we'll come back and say, hey, honey, how's it going? Hey, who are they? Oh, kids, yeah.
They're grown up.
Yeah. Whereas we still, even though Denmark is a very progressive country and we have very much equality between the sexes, but still we sometimes feel that women are possibly closer to home, a bit closer to the kids, just a bit. So to watch a woman letting down her family, letting down her kids, letting down her marriage, basically, everything she sacrifices in order to be the best at her job, it would be a more painful thing to watch. And therefore, the woman was the right choice for that part. Because it gives us pain, and it gives us identification.
About that identification, you wrote 3 seasons, and I've read that the most amazing thing from the series was the dynamic. How you were able, as a creator, to keep our attention for the 3 seasons, being so different? Because you go to any American series and you know what to expect. Sometimes you know, okay, this is going to be the end. But in your series, everything is like surprisingly good. You don't know what to expect. So is that something that you deliberately worked on, or you were surprising yourself through the process?
Well, I think there's one thing that's quite essential about Borgen and the way we did it, and is also the home of Borgen. DR is the Danish National Broadcasting Company. We work for taxpayers' money when we do that show. It's 100% publicly financed. And that is an amazing thing, because they actually give us a huge freedom to tell the stories we want. They don't look us over the shoulder all the time saying, they read the scripts, they give us notes, but they never, ever interfere. And they actually say to us, give us edgy stories, push us, give us something to debate about, because that is a tradition now in Denmark. You know, every Sunday night when it's drama season, about 1.5 million Danes, sometimes 2 million Danes, are sitting there watching it. It's 50 share, you know? It's 50 share. That is quite amazing. It would be the same. Spain is a country of 45, 46 million people. It would be the same as if you had a show that was constantly seen by 18 to 20 million.
Only
Spanish
football.
people. Yeah?
Only
No,
soccer.
only football, and football can do that, yeah. Well, football is popular as well in Denmark. But I mean, it is, and it's so important. We need that big audience, but they, at the same time, they say to us, don't write cliche. Give us something original. Push us, push us, push us. Because we want to be the thing that people discuss over coffee the next day at work. We want to write stories where people say, oh, did you see Borgen last night? Crazy story, blah, 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 blah. We don't want people to say, well, it was just the old thing we've seen so many times. And they actually push us. That is a rare thing, because if you work for a commercial broadcaster, you would typically have some kind of nervousness, right? They would say, we need to sell commercials. We need a successful product. So don't be too edgy. Don't push it too far. Give them something nice. Give them something nice, because then we have them. No, if you continue to give them something nice, you lose them.
But we were talking yesterday when we were together having that wine, that something about fascination.
Yeah.
Identification and fascination. Are those the keys to keep the engagement with your audience?
Well, they're the two big mechanisms, identification and fascination, that we work with in the writer's room. We know that for a story to be really successful, it needs both plot, it needs structure, and that is the fascination bit, you know? And it also needs identification, and that is the emotional bit. That is Birgitte Nyborg being 5 kilos overweight. That is Birgitte Nyborg not reading bedtime story to her son because she is in some political negotiation thing and she has to let down her child. Every parent knows that situation, goes, oh, that's bad. But you also need a story which has some pace, right? And that is the fascination bit. That is structuring of a story that is exciting to watch. You want both of it.
And why, how do you decide to stop? If everything was running so well and you were ready to keep writing, why to end?
Yeah, well, I'm sure if we worked for a commercial broadcaster, they would say, just do what you're doing, and as long as you give us the numbers, you just write what you're doing. But not in a public service channel. They would say, beautiful, you did 20 episodes, it's fine. Now they actually asked us to do 30, so we did 30. The third season was because it was a big success. If it hadn't been, we wouldn't have done the third season. Then they would have ended it at 20. But then DR is constantly developing new shows. So actually, they couldn't use any more of Borgen because the next show was in the pipeline. And the next show was a new fascinating piece of storytelling. So they just said, thanks for Borgen, onwards. And they asked me to do a new show that I'm writing at the moment.
Could you please tell them? Because I think it's so interesting. What is he working on?
Well, I'm currently working on a story about religion, about faith, and obviously also the great religions of the world. And I think basically when you've had a success like Borgen, you need to push yourself. You need to make it more difficult the next time. Never fall back into something which is nice and easy, because it's such a privilege. And also we're living in the golden age of TV series, right? Everybody watches TV series, even more than feature film. It has become its own art form. And we want to push that. We want to keep that ball rolling down. So I definitely chose a very difficult subject. That is, it's difficult, it's dangerous, and it's even more political than politics, right? Religion. It's in everything we discuss, very much when we discuss in Danish society, when we discuss the immigrant crisis, the refugee crisis, when we are talking integration, it's everywhere. When we're talking terror, we are talking about religion. And therefore, I think religion is possibly the most interesting subject I've ever worked with.
And very challenging, I think. So we have been
Extremely.
talking about challenge, transparency,
Yeah.
honesty, negotiation, leadership. From your point of view, how could you apply all those characters, all those keys to the commercial, to the branding world, to the other part of the business?
Well, I think we have a lot in common. I mean, to sell a product is basically storytelling. So I think we could definitely learn things of each other. I think there are principles in storytelling that apply to all sorts of storytelling. Like we talked about identification, fascination, definitely. But I think most of all, you need to know what you're selling. You need to actually, for every product, for every commercial enterprise, you could actually have a premise. It is not a bad thing. You know, just as DR is asking me, what is the premise of your show? If you were to tell about your show in the briefest possible way, what would be the line you would say? And the same thing could apply to every kind of communication and selling of a product. The quintessential values of this product and finding the story that applies to it, and not telling something here when the product is there.
Is there any brand you think it's a good example?
Well, I think that, of course, now he's dead, but Steve Jobs was an amazing storyteller, right? Apple is very much a brand that rests upon incredibly beautifully told stories about their products. Also, amazing design, but the story of making the world an easier thing, scrolling through life on your Mac, right, is a very good and very accessible and very beautiful story. And you can also see, I mean, when storytelling goes wrong, which is quite interesting. There was a survey which I think is quite interesting in Denmark, recently done, that shows that your belief in the Danish system, in politics, in the public world, goes up is directly proportional with your level of education. And so the people that are the least educated are the people that don't believe in politicians. It's quite interesting when you look at Trump at the moment, because here you have a man selling a product, and he's deliberately lying about it, and people don't care. So if you look at Trump, and then you take a product like Volkswagen and their great scandal, right?
Yeah.
Well, Volkswagen, they lied, just as Trump is sometimes lying. Why did it go bad for Volkswagen when Trump is still, almost leading the polls? No, he's not. But anyway, he's very successful. I mean, it's interesting that you can have one product and you can have a chief player for that product, Trump. He can lie consistently in front of an audience, and people don't care. They still buy the product. And then you can have a big factory like Volkswagen, and they tell a little lie about emissions from one of their products, and it just explodes. Why did that happen? Possibly it's not the same voters, it's not the same consumers. Possibly the people that are buying Volkswagen are not the same people that are voting for Trump. So they demand more of, they demand more of the product. The people that vote for Trump, well, they don't demand much of their product, I must say.
When you wrote Borgen, you had to think about your audience. Was it like a broad audience? Was it big? Or have you thought about a specific part of the population, of the population to go to?
DR, they do a lot of segment and analysis, but it actually says in my contract how many people they want to have as an audience for your show.
In your
it's
contract?
An absurdity. It says in my contract that I should write a show that has the direct intention of getting DR 1 million viewers every time. It's absurd. And I would actually say, what if I don't?
Yeah.
Then the show is not a success. They don't take my money, but then they would say...
Okay, that's good enough.
Yeah, at least. Well, that would be interesting, right? To be paid by them, yeah. No, but then they would say the show is not a success because it didn't meet that challenge, right? And still that challenge is getting more and more difficult because we all know Flow TV is going down, On Demand is going up, and the numbers that they write in the contract, that is for Flow TV. So that is the people that are actually sitting there Sunday night at 8 watching as it is aired, right? And we will need to change those systems. We would need to put the numbers for the on-demand viewings on top to meet those challenges, I think. But definitely, when they ask us to do a series, just as I said before, they actually ask us to be edgy. They actually ask us to be daring, to be provoking, and I think that is amazing. You wouldn't necessarily get that from a commercial.
I see.
That is a great privilege for me to work for someone who's actually at my neck asking me, please make it more edgy, please make it relevant to people, don't make it nice.
And how to be provocative and edgy around the three main subjects like politics, communication, and family. Because if you look at Borgen generally, you see those three things,
Yeah.
which look normal. How to be edgy and how to put them together?
Well, as I tried to say in my presentation, we decided to take the three elements of classical politics, the politician, the journalist, and the civil servant, and make them into a character. And actually to have the spin doctor who falls in love with the journalist and who's trying to sell as a product, basically, the politics of the politician. And also trying to control the politician and trying not to fall in love with the journalist, but has fallen in love with the journalist. That was a machine that was very vibrant, that was constantly giving us new ideas. And then we definitely went for stories that we wanted to be provocative, but not only for the sake of provocation, but we wanted to show how does things work in the political, you could say, in the machine room of politics? How's it really done? Because in the news, just as I said before, we are used to seeing politicians exit a room full of negotiating partners and going to the mic and saying, ladies and gentlemen, we have an agreement. We don't know how they got there, right? That's the beautiful world of fiction, that we can actually take you into that negotiation room where the news are never, because they will say, no, you cannot show. There's a beautiful quote actually from The West Wing, a favorite show of mine, that says, two things are not very pretty to watch: how you make sausages and how you make politics. I think it's
very true.
It's very true, yeah.
So I don't want to take all your time because I want our audience to ask you whatever they want. So I'm going to ask Teresa if he helps me out to check if some of you have any questions to Adam.
Conectad? Okay. Bueno, thank you very, very, very much. I think, everything you were telling here, I think is going to inspire, a lot of us here for our brands and our products. And also, we are very envious, what we are living now in the politics situation in Spain, and look at what you are having in Denmark. I think I would like to be in Denmark now, not in Spain. Anyway, I think we have people here that I know, they are very, very, very fond of Borgen. So I'm going to pass the microphone, and I'm sure they will ask very interesting questions to you.
Thank you.
Ricardo, can you present yourself?
Yes, thank you. My name is Ricardo Hernandez. I'm the communications director for Mondelez, the food company in Western Europe. So first of all, I wanted to thank you because it's the first chance that I have of thanking the creator of a series I have enjoyed a lot. So it's a unique occasion, so thank you very much because you are the responsible of most of my moments of enjoyment while watching TV lately. So I think this is fair to say. On questions, I'm very much interested in the relationship between politicians and media that you depict on this series. You said obviously that your series is idealist, which I think it's obvious. But on the series, I'm interested to know that obviously apart from the love affair between the journalist and the spin doctor, that is real. These kind of things happen, of course, also in Spain, I have to say. Apart from that, is this relationship in Denmark as casual, as close as it's seen in the series? I mean, is this thing that it's happening in the series of, oh, I go to the news tonight, by the way. Oh, yes, come over, please, and explain your latest measure. Is it real?
Well, thank you. Wait, now it's on. Thank you very much for your nice words on Borgen. We really do a lot of research when we do these shows. So we had politicians from all the parties come in and tell us about their world. Also, we had political journalists that would actually come in every time we finished an episode in the script. We would actually pitch the story to a political journalist. So we would say, then Birgitte Nyborg does this and this, and we would see any reaction. And then, we would have as our chief advisor, and we called him the evil uncle, was the chief political editor of DR News Department. He actually listened to every single story. And then he would say, no, it wouldn't be like that. The information would come from a different source, and it would be blah, 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 blah. Of course, we simplify things a lot in the series. But I think it is within reason. It represents the real world as it is played out in Denmark. As said, in Denmark, we are slightly less formal. It is actually true that our politicians sometimes bike. Yeah? They even bike to the Queen when they are appointed the new government. But because of public relations, because of you guys. In Denmark, your equivalents would say, bike to the Queen. It would make a nice image.
But our relations people are very nice.
Yes.
Okay. I think we have
Good morning, everyone. Yolanda Arburu, Communications Director at Sanitas, Bupa in the rest of the world. Thank you for your conference, very interesting, fun here. So I am interested in knowing in the series, coalitions negotiate to reach agreements without fighting that much. So what's the secret of success, you think? Thank you.
In coalition?
Without arguing.
In negotiating.
In negotiating. Well, with the fear of repeating myself, well, I think you need to... there are several tricks. One of them is to make your good idea sound as if it's the opponent's idea, right? And if they buy that one, then they will buy the whole thing. Also, to be able to give the honor for a successful business deal to somebody else than you is quite important. That was really a beautiful lesson from that minister I was talking about yesterday, who said, a long life in negotiating politics has taught me this, that if you're willing not to take the honor for any of the successes, but actually give them to somebody else, then you have a long, successful life in negotiating. So I think that is also important. And then, of course, to have some sense of compromise. As I said, in Denmark and in Danish politics, compromise is a national sport. We compromise. And we compromise all the time. Almost all the Danish governments have been coalition governments. You don't get everything you want. You get some of it, and be happy for that. And then try to sell to your voters or to the companies you represent. I couldn't get all of it, but I got this. It's a fair deal. And I think it works in politics. I think it works in business as well. You have to know the level of compromise that you can actually go down on and still make a reasonably good deal.
But something, just for a minute, something that we admire is that you can do that without arguing, without fighting. Is that a matter of culture? Is it education?
We are northerners. We are cold-blooded.
Yeah. That's the huge difference, I think.
Actually, quite funny, I once gave an interview to an Israeli journalist about Borgen, and he says, Mr. Price, I saw you say it's very nice. Tell me, is politics in Denmark that quiet? Because in this country, we blow each other up. So I just say, well, yeah, it's a cultural thing.
I think, Adam, that what you are saying, we're going to use for negotiate with our clients that are here. I think it's good advice.
Yeah.
Anyway, I have more people here that they want to talk. Maria, I think she's a coach and psychologist, so maybe she has, something interesting to ask.
Voy a hacer la pregunta en castellano, que me siento más cómoda. Bueno, muchas gracias a Omnicom. Soy María Manzano, me has presentado tú, Teresa. María Manzano, soy fundadora, soy coach, soy psicóloga y soy fundadora de una escuela de coaching. Siguiendo un poco la pregunta anterior, aparte de daros las gracias por organizar esto, me parece interesantísimo. Mi pregunta sería...
I hear Spanish here.
A ver,
Maybe you have to change channel.
Which is lovely, because it's a beautiful language.
Channel 2.
Channel 2.
2.
And how do I change? Here it goes. Yeah,
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Mi pregunta, aunque habéis comentado que la cultura danesa está más acostumbrada al consenso y a la negociación, la serie empieza en el momento en el que hay que cambiar el sistema de los vencedores o los que tienen más votos por un sistema de consenso y de negociación. Me gustaría que eso, ahora mismo aquí en España te puedes imaginar que es imprescindible. Los ciudadanos hemos dicho claramente no mayorías absolutas. Hemos dicho no queremos elegir entre azules y rojos, liberales y conservadores, lo llamemos como lo llamemos, queremos un arco iris. Me gustaría saber cuál es tu visión de la clave para ese cambio de los vencedores al consenso de entre los diferentes.
Se lo tiene que pensar, creo, ¿eh?
Now that was an easy question. Well, it would be wise to say, hell, I don't know, you solve your own politics. No. But I would say one thing. I will ask you actually one question. What is the average percentage of voting in Spain?
Well, we have here an ex-politician,
Yeah.
José Ramón. We will ask.
General elections about 70-75.
Oh, so it's quite high. Yeah. That's good anyway, because I think the most depressing thing is when that percentage goes down. It's very scary to watch politics in the United States, and about half the population don't even want to vote. And that is so sad. Also, the story about Brexit. I mean, if all the young people that actually wanted to stay in the Union had actually gotten out of bed that day and gone and voted, it wouldn't have been a Brexit. So definitely, I think education. And then, I mean, keeping a pride in politics. Actually and I think education is also very useful there, actually that people know that it makes sense to vote, and keeping that percentage very high. Then I definitely also think that at the heart of this despair in politics we see is the feeling that it doesn't matter what I mean and say about anything. And I think at the heart of a lot of political issues is an issue on corruption, which I think is extremely sad. Now, Denmark, there is this index, international index of corruption called Transparency International. They make a list every year of the most and the least corrupt countries. Of course, I'm proud to say that Denmark is currently the least corrupt country in the world. And Somalia is a failed state. It's the most corrupt country, and Afghanistan and stuff like that. But of course, you need to know that it makes sense all the way, that your journey through life as a citizen, that it actually makes sense. And you need also to have a debate culture. We have a huge debate culture in Denmark. We actually like to have all these parties. It's crazy. We are such a small country, 5 million people. We have 9, 10 parties constantly debating in our parliament. I think that is a political culture that's very important. But I would definitely say to educate your young people and make sure that it makes sense to vote and that they know the system, and then to bring down some of the hierarchies. So make your politicians accessible. I think accessibility is very, very important. That is also a key thing in business life. I really think so.
Okay, I think more faces that are fan of Borgen. So
There's some over there. Okay.
Yeah, I'm David from Video Proximity Group in Spain.
Yeah.
I have an easier question for you.
Thank you.
I would like to know what, in your opinion, are the companies who are following the values that Borgen is representing. So the openness, transparency, honesty. What are the brands and the companies in the world that you consider that following these values?
That's difficult. I mean, I'm sure that you are you have a much clearer vision on the companies and the communication policies of the big companies than I do. I think yesterday evening we discussed, when we had our discussion, we also talked about, as a company, you also need to have a premise. You need to have a message. Address high-end consumers of Europe or the Western world. It is essential to have honesty and openness as part of your whole communication and the way to deal with, the way to sell your product, basically. I think that becomes more and more an issue when you're dealing with political consumers, critical consumers, as we are in Europe. Not all consumers in the world are as privileged as us, and they don't ask, was this piece of clothes, was it children in China, or circumstances that we don't like. In 192 countries, we made a mistake, sorry. But I really think that that is modern communication. And I think several companies do that well. It would be easy always to say Apple. I would say several companies also well, we have a Danish company called Novo. They're very, very good at that part of communication, and also they take part in public life in Denmark. I would say a big company like Tata Industries, amazing, because they have an extremely clear vision, both business-wise, what they go into, that they either want to be number 1 or number 2 in the country they go in, and then if they're not, then they just sell the whole thing and they go on. And they have a very strong sense of public responsibility. And I think that's the way to go.
When you told Novo, you say Novo Nordisk.
So,
Novo
yeah,
Nordisk,
Novo, yeah,
yes, the
yeah.
diabetes the company
Exactly,
makes.
Novo, yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Manuel Lopez, PR manager for HP in Spain and Portugal. Very valuable, all what you have said, very valuable for our job. But I'm very interested in the process. You explained that you studied the American series, House of Cards, West Wing, etc. I'm interested in your opinion on what is the difference between the American series and the European series, or talking in general for American communication and European communication, something like that. I'm very interested on that.
Yeah, thank you. If you look at politics as storytelling as such, you can look at it from different angles. If you take a show like House of Cards, you are looking through the prism of cynicism. It's a cynical show. But basically, it wants to portray the same world as Borgen, the world of politics, the world of power play, but they just chose the cynical way of showing it. Whereas Borgen, or a show like The West Wing, chose the idealistic way of showing this world. And I think that is a choice of the creator, basically. I very much like the cynicism of House of Cards. Very much. I think it's great. But it's also sometimes a bit, you could say, repetitious in its darkness sometimes. You just know that this guy is just going bad all the time, and they have to make him worse all the time. Whereas Borgen, where we chose deliberately an idealistic angle to the story, we always wanted there to be some flicker of hope. Always some flicker of hope. Sometimes that flicker of hope was just a conscience. Like when she, in the 4th episode, I think, she says, I hoped I'm lying to the general public, but at least she has a conscience, you know? And then the conscience is the flicker of hope. She doesn't want to lie all the time. I would very much like to be in Trump's bedroom sometimes.
Okay, there is a question in the middle of the audience. Teresa?
Teresa Dorn, I'm a communications consultant. As you mentioned before, television series have become the new success form in communications. And Borgen certainly was a good example. I loved it and I miss it. Perhaps because being American, I was used to having my favorite series last for years and years. My question, does this mean that series are becoming a short-lived product? And if so, what effect might that have on those of us who are trying in our work to keep products alive year after year?
Well, I think I tried to explain the reasons for Borgen not being more than 3 seasons before, because that was actually a choice made by the channel. I don't say that we couldn't have done a 4th series, a 4th season, and I don't think it necessarily will be that way, that good shows will end quicker. You can look at a great show, I think the world's most popular show at the moment, Game of Thrones. It's running into its 6th and 7th, and I don't know, perhaps 9 or 8 seasons they will do. So I really think that, and obviously I love series. I think series are here to stay. I very much hope, because if not, I will be out of a job. But then perhaps I can get one in communication. Shows are finished, and then to end it gracefully, because we've all seen shows that have been writing, that have gone a couple of seasons too far, when it's kind of redundant and you say, no, now it's not good anymore. So definitely, I think you need to have a critical angle at your show at all times and say, are we still as edgy? Are we still as happy? If we're not as happy telling these stories, we have to end it.
Let me ask you something. What are you watching now? Any recommendation? Which series would you recommend?
Well, I would love to watch more than I actually do. At the moment, I'm watching The Affair, which I think is a beautiful show, and with also a very clear idea. It's a beautiful structure that you actually have two versions of the same reality. It's a human truth, and if you can find a human truth at the core of your series, I think you are destined to make great storytelling, and they're definitely doing that. So I'm watching The Affair at the moment. I also love Game of Thrones. I very much love House of Cards. I consider the British writer who actually wrote the novel my friend, Michael Dobbs. So I'm very fortunate to know him personally and know the story behind House of Cards.
Lucky
it's
you.
Quite
Any secret you tell us, please.
Well, the inspiration for House of Cards, he told me, was actually, he was working, the House of Cards was a novel in the UK before it became a TV series in the UK, and then it was remade into the American version that everybody knows now. But the story behind the original novel, he was the campaign leader, Michael Dobbs was the campaign leader of Margaret Thatcher in her third or fourth campaign. So she was becoming the evil old Elizabeth of the UK politics, right? She was, and that's a disease that I think can hit everybody that stays too long in power. You get kind of afraid that everybody is carrying a dagger behind you and you're constantly on the watch. And then you have a lot of courtiers around you, snakes that will tell you, not everybody in the room is faithful to you, Mom. And that was what happened to him. So basically, somebody that didn't like him as a campaign leader told her that he was not loyal. So he was fired in the most Shakespearean, cruel way at a cabinet meeting by her royalty, the late Mrs. Thatcher. She fired him. I mean, she in the medieval days, she would have cut off his head. But the equivalent of that was to fire him in front of the whole cabinet and have him walk out of there. And then he went to Mallorca and bought a beautiful bottle of Rioja, I guess, and he drank the whole thing at the swimming pool. And the next morning he had written only 2 letters on a napkin, F-U, meaning fuck you, right? But those are also the initials, Frank Underwood, or as the character is called in the British series, Francis Urquhart. But Frank Underwood, F-U, they kept that. Fuck you, Thatcher.
Brilliant.
So that's a story written on anger, right? Written on, I want to tell you a story now. That's also a great inspiration.
Thank you for the secret. I love it.
That was the story about House of
Okay,
Cards.
more questions? There are more questions there? If there is questions there, please. Okay.
Hello, my name is Clara Barrabes. I'm the global head of Spanish bank with large market shares in Latin America. My question is more a curiosity. It's related to what you were saying about the horizontal relationship that you have culturally in Denmark, and also you can see that in the movie. So even if there's no vertical hierarchy in Denmark, how does it work? Because there must be some ways in which everything is organized. There must be some kind of hierarchy. If you can explain us a bit more on that.
Yes, well, I think, I mean, in Denmark we try to break down the hierarchies, both in the television world, but also in the business world. And I think it's a very important reason for the relative success of the Danish society and Danish business life as well. Also, we have something which is quite important for our business life, which is the principle of flexicurity, which means that society provides a level of security for all citizens. We will take care of you if you fail. So the employer can be flexible with the workforce. I don't know how it is here in Spain, but I think I'm told that it's difficult to fire people sometimes, and that people are stuck in the businesses, and sometimes that can drag a whole business, and sometimes it can almost drag a country down. And I think that level of flexibility is absolutely essential, also in the modern world, where products are certainly going up, going down, going up, going down. You need to be flexible with your workforce. That is one thing. And then bringing down the hierarchies. Now, I know many colleagues, not that many colleagues in Spain, but I know colleagues in the television world, in Germany and in France. They have a lot of hierarchy there. Too many bosses, too many executives that want to influence every single decision and that want to see the print, their own, fingerprint on every decision. That is not necessarily good leadership. That is nervous leadership, where you think that, well, I'm the boss, so they need to see I'm the boss. So I change something. Not because I know particularly something about this product, but I will just change it because I'm the boss, so they can see that I'm the boss. And then change if it's necessary, but don't change just because you're the boss. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jose Ramon Caso. I'm CEO of Ketchup Banner Cafés. We were talking before. I am a former politician many years ago. I am very much delighted, of course, for the cities. It's a pity we have not with us anymore. And I've been very interested in what you have talked to us about the background, the premises, and so on. It's very interesting from the communication point of view, I think, not only from politics, that you detected that when we have no freedom, we fight for freedom. When we have freedom, we don't care. That's the basis. And you put forward a very interesting premise. I've lived through it. How can you be faithful to yourself when you have to take decisions? But because of what's happening in the developed world, you talk about Trump, we could talk about Marine Le Pen, we could talk about many others, Brexit and so on, demagogues. I would say, what's the premise? When you have a free society, a wealthy society, how can you avoid that populists and demagogues lie and lie and lie and nobody cares?
Yeah. Well, I think that we do see the same problems in Denmark. We just see them on a smaller scale because we are still a very homogenic society. But even in Denmark, we see that the rich are getting richer and the poor I think that is really essential. I think the differences are growing too big in our societies, and I think that is the poison we experience right now. That basically a lot of our countries, we are divided almost 50-50. People that believe in the system, that, for instance, believe in the EU or that want this sort of government, and people that just are afraid of everything and basically possibly vote for Trump or vote out of Brexit. They don't do it because they're bad people, but I think they do it because they feel lost. Nobody caught them before they fell, and I think that is very, very dangerous. Denmark is an old socialist country, basically, a social democratic country, and we are I think in these years we are selling a bit too much out of the solidarity. We are discussing stupid tax laws only for the rich, when we should say let's do something for the people down here. Because if we catch them, they will feel that it matters and that we are in the boat together. But if they don't feel that they're in the boat, they will sail in a different direction, and that will split us up completely. And that's what's happening right now, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Adam. Eva Alvarez, Ketchum's creative director. I was thinking about what you say about identification and fascination as a part of ingredient to create your series. I was asking, myself, we sometimes need to work to create a content for a universal target, not only for group of targets. I mean, mothers, millennials, or whatever. And this is for us much difficult to create this identification and fascination. How do you do it?
Whoa. Well, I can just say that the work in the storyline room, we definitely need, now it gets a little technical, but anyway, but it's the same thing. It is definitely just a communication strategy form, you could say. You do need your fascination plot. You need something that drives your story. For us, that would be, for instance, in Borgen, it would be a plot, is she losing the election or is she winning the election? That is a fascinating plot. But the identification is just as important. And that is, of course, if she wins, she will let down her kids. Or if she does this, then she will lose her marriage. And you want both in that story. Because if an example of a very plotted and very fascination-driven piece of storytelling would be James Bond. James Bond is almost only plot. We rarely cry to a Bond movie. We are fascinated and we are constantly driven. Sometimes they actually get a little emotion in there and then we are almost grateful, right? But we need both the big emotions and we need the fascination plot. So definitely always have an engine in your storytelling, in your communication, and then you also need the emotions there. And the emotions, they come out of knowing your characters. Knowing your characters very well. For me, anyway, that is the thing. I needed to know the woman, Birgitte Nyborg, in order to be able to hopefully make you cry over her. So I need to know her personally, because if I don't know the world of my characters, I'm writing cliché. I'm writing scenes that I have seen before, and I'm just putting my characters in scenes I've seen before. But if I want to write something original, I have to know the character intimately, and that takes time.
Okay, there is more questions because I can't see. No puedo ver muy bien por allá arriba. ¿Hay alguna pregunta más? Sí.
I'm Joaquim Calaf from Contrapunto BBDO. I'm here. Hi, down.
Oh, there you are. Sorry. Sorry.
Here near you. I'd like to change slightly the topic from politics to the actual production of the show. You've emphasized the importance of the writers as the fundamental basement of the drama. But I think that in Borgen, the production values, the quality of the production, the acting is also very important. No, you've spoken a little bit about the overweight of Brigitte, but how did you work with the production? What do you think is the production part of the success of the show? And how did you work with the production while you were writing the story? And how did you work with the actors so that everything would combine in a successful way?
Well, as a creator, my role is to be everywhere in the process, mostly in the writer's room, but also having constant meetings with the actors, meeting with the new directors, and I'm constantly talking with the production. And that's also part of the success, is that we have, in 25 years, we have become quite good at, I mean, a story is also told on a budget. And to make as much of that budget go on screen is very important. So I'm constantly discussing everything with my producer. Actually, the core of the success when we're talking workforce is the nucleus producer and writer. I work every day for hours with the producer. She will come in and say, you have so many night scenes, so many day scenes, could you make a few more day scenes, because then it would be easier for us in the production. I meet with Sigue because she's a very emotional actress. Actually, she almost never had any notes about the politics. Never. She didn't know the world of politics, but she knew her part very well. So she knew the emotions. So she would come into my office and she would say, I cannot say that line. And I need to know what I'm feeling here. I cannot feel it. Then I would edit the scene. So all these drafts I told you that I was writing, one would be for her, one would be for the production, where I would change stuff for her, for the production, for the director. So constantly a dialogue to make it better, better, better. And that is very much a key element to the success, that we communicate all the time and we don't fight each other. We fight for each our part in the product, but we're fighting in the same direction. Yeah. Yes. Well, technically, I'm put together with a producer. We form the leadership of the show. If we do well, nobody will ever question our decisions. I mean, the boss of DR will possibly have one of two questions, but they would never go in and say, you cannot write that, you cannot write that. They give us freedom as artists. That is quintessential. And they give the producer freedom over the budget. So if she doesn't fuck up and use too much money, they will leave us alone, and we will be our own entity in DR, and basically admirals of our ship called Borgen. Another ship, The Killing, is sailing in a different direction. Another ship, a new series, is sailing in a different direction. But we are sailing at the same time, all for DR as the main producer. And I, as a creator, I hire the actors, the directors, I hire the writers also. Yeah, I participate in all parts of the creative process, everything creative. So also the set designer is Birgitte Nyborg sitting in this sofa or that sofa. It will also pass my desk. Sometimes I will just say, you decide, it's fine. But they will have to ask, not the smallest detail, is this the glass of Birgitte Nyborg? I don't know. But the bigger things, how does her home look like? Of course I need to know, and it needs to be part of the story. So yes, I participate in every single process, the music, everything.
Creo que hay una pregunta allá arriba.
Yes, hello, my name is Mons Escudero. I work also in public affairs in Ketchum. But my question is a curiosity only, because Teresa has explained us you are also a chef and you have some restaurants. Yes. And I suppose you are not recommending us to have two jobs. I hope so. But I want to know if you think these two activities for you are complementary, or on the other way, you try to forget one of your sides of your world in the kitchen, and then when you are on TV, you have another world, or they are complementary, both of them?
Well, I know it sounds a bit weird, all this cooking stuff, because I think if you woke me up at 3 o'clock in the morning and asked me, what do you do? I would say I'm a writer. But I come from a family. My father and mother, they were actors and directors, but my father also had a great passion in his life, that was food. And he wrote articles about food, recipe articles and cooking books and stuff like that. So basically, I grew up in a home where we discussed two things: storytelling, either for theater or film, but storytelling and food. Those are the only things we ever discussed. Yeah, it's lovely, lovely home. And so that was actually a culture I grew up in, that food was important. And then I began to cook myself, and I consider food a great hobby of mine. Then all of a sudden it became work as well, because my brother and I have a brother, I love him dearly. He is a composer and a band leader, director in Denmark. And he grew up in the same home. He also cooks a lot. And we love to cook together. And then we were actually watching TV one day, 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago, and we were saying, why isn't there a nice food program, a funny food program, where they actually show us how to make this dish, how to make this. It had almost disappeared from primetime TV at that time. Now it's everywhere, food, right? But at that time it was actually out. And then we made a proposal to DR to do a program. We didn't know that we would be hosting it. We just wrote a proposal to do a new cooking show. And then they said, good idea, you do it. And then all of a sudden we were TV chefs. And we actually thought we were only going to last one season because, I mean, we're not professional chefs, but we are brothers sharing a passion. That is very much the nature of that show. It is almost like the car show Top Gear. You know Top Gear, all of you? That is a show about cars, yes, but it's also a show about three friends sharing a passion. Our cooking show is that kind of show. We're just sharing the passion of food. And I use food as a meditation, basically, because when I'm writing all these series, I spend so much time trying to think, is this the right decision? Should I do this? Should I do that? And I spend so much time in front of the computer. It's so lovely to work with these two, and actually something that's very concrete. Now I'm standing there with a piece of meat, I'm cutting it, and in 2 hours it's going to be Hungarian goulash. What do you know?
Okay, if there is no any question, okay. Well, I must thank you very much to you. I mean, I think
thank you so much.
It was great to have you here. And I have something for you.
You do?
The first time that we were talking on the phone, do you remember? We were talking in English. And suddenly I was talking, do you like Spain? And he said, yes, I love Spain. What I really love more is jamón de pata negra. So here there is a present.
Oh, amazing.
There is a present.
Oh, thank you so much.
So this is our present for the Omnicom group, jamón de pata negra, because we want, when you come back to Denmark and in your restaurants, we'll say that the best the best ham is Spanish ham, no Italian, please.
No. No.
Jamón de pata negra,
yeah.
Spanish. Okay.
I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. I'll eat this right away.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Susana. Thank you. You did a great job.
Thank you very much.
Bueno, ahora muchos de los que estáis aquí sabéis que desde hace 3 años todas las agencias de Omnicom creamos una idea que la verdad es que estamos bastante contentos con llevarla a cabo, que es premiar al emprendimiento en España. Empezamos hace 3 años, ya ha habido 3 ganadores. Y este año, lógicamente, nos hemos reunido y hemos votado y tenemos el nuevo ganador. Entonces, para eso me gustaría que subiera Emma Sergen, que es la directora de Das Omnicom en Europa, que le entregue el premio al más votado este año, que es una empresa que se llama Lucera. Es una startup que empezó hace 2 años, en el 2014, en el sector de electricidad, el sector eléctrico, y que, bueno, que va camino de ayudarnos a ahorrar lo que es consumo y, por tanto, dinero, que nos viene muy bien a todos los españoles. Por lo tanto, me gustaría presentaros a De Vicente, ¿no? En nombre de Emilio Bravo, que es el CEO, Jordi De Vicente, en nombre de Emilio Bravo, que es el CEO, que hoy está en Londres y no puede estar aquí, por favor.
I'd just like to say a few words. Firstly, congratulations. It's a great enterprise. We as Omnicom, I think, value startups, we value entrepreneurialism within our businesses. So if we can help you in your growth going forward, it will be a great pleasure. And I also want to just say to the agencies in the room here, we've heard a lot about coalition in the discussion earlier. And I think you as the Spanish agencies have really led the way in having all your logos together, coming together, working together. And I think this is the future of how we do business. So I would like to thank you for leading the way in Europe in having such a great spirit in the countries across our agencies and delivering great work to our clients. So I feel very honoured to be here today. Thank you.
Bueno, pues gracias a todos. Esperamos veros aquí al año que viene, porque traeremos otro tema que yo creo que nos puede inspirar a todos, de lo que todos aprendemos. Yo creo que hoy hemos aprendido, y deciros que no os marchéis, que hay un pequeño cóctel y bueno, que disfrutéis. Ah, perdón. Que lógicamente os va a explicar qué es Lucera. Perdón.
Muchas gracias. Bueno, pues nada, para los que no nos conozcáis, represento a Lucera Energía. Es una nueva compañía, una comercializadora eléctrica que, por raro que suene, sí, nuestro objetivo es ayudaros a ahorrar, ¿vale? Nosotros cuando creamos Lucera teníamos claro que el sector eléctrico, pues las grandes compañías o las no tan grandes simplemente ganan más cuando más consume el cliente o más potencia tiene contratada. Nosotros apostamos por un modelo energético diferente. Teníamos que cambiar las reglas del juego y ofrecer un producto que fuera innovador y que se centrara en ayudar al cliente. ¿Cómo lo hacemos? Pues lo primero que teníamos que hacer era desligar nuestro margen comercial del consumo del cliente, así que decimos claramente lo que ganamos, que son 3,9 euros al mes, independientemente de lo que consuma el cliente. De este modo lo que intentamos es, por un lado, ser lo más transparente posible, que el cliente sepa en cada momento cuánto está pagando en cada concepto, y segundo, al no tener ningún tipo de beneficio sobre el consumo del cliente, pues nos podemos centrar en ajustar el contrato, intentar reducir el consumo, ayudar a hacer un consumo más racional y eficiente, y en este sentido pues pusimos al alcance de cualquier usuario la calculadora de derroche. Si no la conocéis, os invito a que la probéis, porque es una herramienta en abierto para cualquier usuario, sea cliente o no, y lo que hace es un estudio personalizado del consumo que estáis realizando en casa. Os decimos cuánto podríais ahorrar con nosotros, sea mucho o sea poco, lo decimos claramente, e informamos de las ventajas de, pues, por ejemplo, la tarifa con discriminación horaria, no sé si la conoceréis. Aparte también el bono social, hay muchos clientes que podrían percibirlo y no lo conocen, y bueno, entendemos que aunque nosotros no lo podemos ofrecer, es justo que todo aquel que pueda acogerse a esta ayuda pues la solicite y se beneficie de ella. Y nada, simplemente apostamos por las energías renovables y sencillamente con estas herramientas lo que intentamos es que si el cliente ahorra, ganamos todos, nosotros reducimos costes y el medio ambiente también sale ganando, porque toda la energía que compramos es de origen renovable. Apostamos así por un modelo totalmente sostenible. Y nada, el premio pues hay que dedicárselo a todos los usuarios, miles ya, que han confiado en este modelo, que comparten nuestros valores, y nada, seguiremos trabajando por ellos y para ofrecer un modelo pues más atractivo para todos. Muchas gracias.
Bueno, pues suerte. Os animo a que os paséis a tomar algo. Gracias a todos por venir.